For those of you that have your microphone muted, go ahead and mute that. And let's see here. All right, so welcome to today's training. Today we have Mark McKinnon with Precision Digital with us, and we're going to be going over the Precision Digital line, talking about some digital indicators, some applications. We're going to have a PowerPoint that we're going to share with you. This will be recorded, so later on check out our YouTube website, and I will send you a link to link you directly up to that site, and feel free to view the PowerPoint and the training at any time you'd like. So to give you a little bit of background, Mark, I keep on saying Bruce because we have a Bruce McKinnon that used to work at Honeywell. So Mark has 20 years of experience with Magnetrol, previous to Precision Digital. He brings a lot of application knowledge, product knowledge to the table here, and today we're going to have a great session. So at the end, feel free to, we'll have a question and answer session, so feel free to ask any questions at the end, and we'll go ahead and help you as best we can. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and we'll have Mark give the presentation and training.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. And as you can see, it's time for Tech Tuesday. So I'll go ahead and get started. I've got some slides and some of our general meters, a couple on our newer meters, and then we'll close, like Jeff said, with questions and answers. Okay, so the first thing I kind of wanted to point out is that we do see a lot of people using Precision Digital because of the fact that transmitters from various manufacturers used to be more remote mounted. So if we look at the transmitters on the left, one of them is an ultrasonic transmitter, one of them is thermal dispersion, but it could be really any technology. They used to be more remote mounted, and this shows some of the remote mounted units. For the most part, everything now is a 2-wire integral mount loop powered. So it really provides the need more so for something like Precision Digital that has a remote display, relays, and then the capability of providing power to those transmitters. So this shows some of the typical meters from Precision Digital. We'd like to think that by providing a meter like this, that we provide a more complete solution, whether it's level or flow, pressure, temperature. A lot of the 2-wire transmitters really need some type of local or ground level indication away from the tank if it's level, or pipe if it's flow. So the meters on the left are some of our typical meters. So the meter at the top left there is an LCD panel meter, and the one on the right is LED. So the LCD units are primarily loop powered, and the nice thing about loop powered, is you'll see in a slide coming up, is you really just break into that 4 to 20 milliamp loop, and you can provide a display wherever you need it. So loop powered are primarily LCD for us, line powered or LED, and the LED versions can provide relays. So if you would need relays for alarm or pump control, Precision Digital can provide 2, 4, even up to 8 single pole double throw relays, and also provide a retransmit, isolated retransmit of the 4 to 20 milliamp. So we'd like to think we've got a highly visible remote LCD or LED. We can provide power to that transmitter we're hooked up to, relays I talked about, lead lag pump control, and then we've got a variety of displays, whether it's a general purpose display like this. This top left one can be provided with intrinsically safe or non-incentive approvals. Or we see the one on the right here, this is more explosion proof. So the explosion proof ones can be class 1, div 1, B, C, D. This explosion proof meter, if you do need to do some configuration changes, we've got what we call our Protex explosion proof through glass buttons. So that's kind of what this is showing here. And then you can do the configuration ahead of time with one of our USB programming, or you can do it with those 4 push buttons. So this is just an example of where we might come into play with an application. This is a level application. So this is in a sump at a power plant. We've got some type of guided wave radar here. A little hard to see the display though. So what we do is we would provide a precision digital meter. It would provide power to that level transmitter, provide the local display as you see, and then relays, as I said, for maybe high alarm or low alarm, or pump control. This, just another application, this is an ultrasonic transmitter. This is a wastewater treatment plant, so this is open channel flow. Hopefully you've all had breakfast already, so it's a little bit a dirty slide. But you know, if I've got an ultrasonic transmitter from somebody over the weir, a little hard obviously to see that display. So we can bring this off to the side, and this would be a remote display. This particular one has 2 relays. Like I said, it can have 0, 2, or 4 relays. And it does have the 420 milliamp retransmit, isolated retransmit that would go back to the control room, DCS, PLC. We can also provide the enclosures. So this is one of our precision digital enclosures. Customers like this, especially in the municipal industry, it's got a cover over it, so it protects a little more from splashes. And for flow applications, primarily what we're going to see is the rate on the top. So this might be 1,200 gallons per minute. And totalization on the bottom. So these are totalized gallons on the bottom. A wide variety of enclosures that we offer. This one here was just one, once again, ultrasonic application. This is a alum or aluminum sulfate storage tank. So with this storage tank, we've got an ultrasonic transmitter. It's providing the level. It's being displayed by the precision digital. This particular one had just the 4 to 20 milliamp retransmit that went back to the control room at the wastewater treatment plant. Prior to this application, there was actually 2 other applications. So we provided the customer with an enclosure with 2 cutouts. So we can do 2 cutouts, 3 cutouts, up to 10 cutouts. So if you had 10 tanks or 10 pipes or 10 level, flow, pressure, temperature, we can put that into one of our low-cost thermoplastic enclosures. We also have stainless steel, which is shown in the upper right here, and steel enclosures. So a wide variety of low cost and cutouts up to going up to 10. I mentioned explosion proof. We do have explosion proof line powered units, and we have explosion proof LCD units. So these are LCD. So as I said in the beginning, this is a loop powered unit. It actually was replacing a Rosemont. So this is a Rosemont 751 here just off the display. It's at a Kinder Morgan facility. But what we like to do is we like to provide as much information to the customer as possible. So the Rosemont device really just has like a 3 or 4 digit one-line enclosure display. What we see here is if needed for level, we can do a feet and inches display. So instead of looking at this and thinking that it's 47.833 feet, we see that it's 47 feet 10 inches. There's a 20 segment bar graph off to the side. So you get an instant visual indication of how much is in that tank. And the second line could be used for just engineering units or whatever the tank is. This is tank 1, here's tank 2. So we're really trying to get as much information to the customer as possible about the application. So that was an explosion-proof meter, once again loop powered. This is just the NEMA 4X enclosure. It kind of looks like it's a aluminum enclosure, but it's once again a thermoplastic enclosure, so it's just NEMA 4X. So it's a low-cost meter. It's got its own enclosure around it, so NEMA 4X. And as I mentioned, with a loop-powered display, the nice thing about it is you just break into the loop. So there's probably a level device up on top of this asphalt storage tank. The customer just wanted to break the loop here, provide a ground level display, once again with the bar graph. In this particular one, they've actually used that second line to scale it for something else. So the top line was a level, 46 feet, 10 inches. Once again, we have a 20 segment bar graph. I don't know if you can see that bar graph, but it's kind of like towards the top of the bar graph, as indicated by the percent display, which is reading 96% full. But once again, providing a lot of information by just putting a local display or ground level display wherever the customer needs it within the loop. So that's kind of some applications and how we're used. This is our core product line. So I talked a little bit about explosion-proof units. This really big one here is line powered, so it can have up to 4 relays. There's a kind of a medium-sized one that I showed you that is about half the price of the big one. And then this small one here is about half the price of the medium-sized one. So this one kind of fits in the palm of your hand. So it is just a one-line display, but a very low-cost explosion-proof unit, so it can be used in hazardous areas. ProView is probably our main line. It's a full-featured panel meter. It's got a dual-line display. And then we do the Trident also. The Trident's offered in 2 versions. The standard version here is about a 0.6-inch character size. And the one below is very bright. You can see it from about 30 feet away. It's got huge digits, about 1.2-inch digits. So all these, once again, are providing that local or ground level display. If they're line powered, providing relays if need be for alarm and control, and the capability of powering up whatever it's hooked up to, whether that's level, temperature, flow, pH, conductivity, whatever the application is. We also have a very large unit called the dual line unit called the Helios. It's the largest dual line display in the market. It's sunlight readable, can be displayed from up to 100 feet away. It is NEMA 4X, meant to be mounted outdoors, goes down to -40, and it's got free USB programming. So the download is from the unit itself. You'll see that in the next slide. So this is how you can do the configuration. There's 4 push buttons inside this door. But for the most part, it's so easy to do the programming with the software that people do that with their laptop. Now, when you hook this up, we actually provide the USB cable. So if you would get 3 of these, we would provide you with 3 USB cables. It's a standard USB cable, so it can be purchased at Best Buy, Walgreens, whatever. But once you hook it up from here to here, that configuration software automatically downloads from the Helios into your laptop, and you can start to do the configuration. Not only does it do that, but you can actually power up this unit from the laptop. So it makes it very convenient. You could do it in your truck, you could do it in your shop without powering it up. This is a very bright display. The intensity goes from like 1 to 8, so this is probably 8, very bright. When you do power it up from the USB, this is a little bit more dim because now it's just being powered up from this USB port. But it does make it very easy, very simple to configure with this free software. As far as applications that we see for the Helios, this is somewhere near St. Louis. I was at this site. They had two tanks. Each tank had an ultrasonic transmitter on the top. And what this is a truck loadout facility. So very, very common application for these huge units. This particular customer did have one of our Precision Digital ProViews, but it was mounted back so far that the truck driver couldn't see it. So what the customer wanted was a very large display such that when the truck pulled up and went to fill up this tank fill line, they could then see how much was in the tank and know if how much they could fill it. So it was two tanks. We do have a dual version of this Helios. So the dual version is called a 6060 or PD2 6060. It can take in two 4 to 20 milliamps. Now when you do that, it's not just showing 72 and 41 and you don't know what the engineering units are. It actually just goes back and forth from the numeric value to the engineering unit. So you know it's 72 gallons and 41 gallons in those two tanks. So that is a very common application for the Helios. It's a truck loading facility, very common in a lot of the plants, and they do need some kind of huge readout so they can see how many gallons have been added to the tank or how much they can take away. So another example of this would be here again, you see the tank fill lines. This is at a water treatment plant, I think. So they've got ferrous chloride tanks. They did have an ultrasonic transmitter, but the electronics were mounted in a shed about 100 feet away. They really had no idea where the level was. So there are ultrasonic transmitters on the top of both of these tanks. You can't see them. But now with the Helios, they can provide a very large display. And then the truck, when it pulls up to these two tank fill lines, they can see what's in the tank. This is a Smucker's juice plant, Maryland, a site that I was at. I took this picture. They had a guided wave radar level transmitter, a 16-foot probe inside this large tank. The Helios was provided once again to provide this feet and inches. So this is 2 feet, 10 inches, 9/16 of an inch of level in the tank. So once again, this is going to provide power for that guided wave radar level transmitter. Local display that you can see from 100 feet away and relays if need be. The same site had two non-contact radars in smaller tanks, little sodium hydroxide tanks, and these were mounted into a little shed. They didn't need a real big display, but with the two tanks, they use Precision Digital ProView units, PD6000, for display, powering up the transmitter, and once again relays if they needed some kind of high alarm or maybe pump control for that hydroxide tank. Okay. That is our standard product lines. I did want to touch base on two other newer products. We've got a Precision Digital wireless system. So this is a very simple point-to-point wireless bridge from point A to point B. We can go 1 mile line of sight outdoors. That's line of sight. Indoors, it's usually about 500 feet because you're going through a couple walls. If we do 1 point, it's just like you see on the left here. So 1 point, we just have two of these blue transmitters. We call them primary and secondary as opposed to transmit and receive. And the reason for that, I can transmit a 4 to 20 milliamp from here to here or from here to here. So it can go either way. It's going to transmit one analog signal, whether it's 4 to 20 or 0 to 10 volts, Modbus, and up to 4 digital inputs. So all those can be transmitted simultaneously. Matter of fact, we've got one plant that does have it's got 8 points. One of them is real close to a Modbus. I think it was temperature. So they do transmit the 4 to 20 milliamp for like an open channel flow and a Modbus simultaneously from point A to point B. That would be just for one point. We do have our multiple point system. So this is the PDW90. This base station can take up to a maximum of 32 of these field units. So the application I was just talking about, there were 8 points. So they had 8 of these blue units, and then those would be transmitted wirelessly into this antenna on the top into our base station. This is what the unit would look like. Most of our units do have a USB configuration. You can see a little micro USB behind the glass here. So that's where you can do the configuration for these 4 push buttons. But once again, most people just plug into the micro USB. The software is a free download from our website, and that's the PDW Manager software. This housing is the same housing. We have another meter in Explosionproof. So we're real close to getting Explosionproof on this, but the point is very rugged housing. The technology that we use is 900 megahertz frequency hopping spread spectrum. And we're really known, our niche in the wireless world is very simple. If I would go with just the 2 points like this, they're pre-programmed for the factory with the same address. So all you do really is put 24 volts on this, 24 volts on this, put a 4 to 20 on one end, and you'll see it on the other end. So very, very simple. So we're known for rugged housing, simple to use, and low cost. We have kind of a nice way of testing the units. If you do have an application, we recommend using this survey kit. It's a PDA 10 survey kit. It's using the same frequency, 900 megahertz, as the actual units. So if you had let's say you had a level application, you could put this red unit on top of the tank. You walk away with the blue unit. The blue unit has a readout of the signal strength. As long as that signal strength stays above 75%, then we know we've got a good application. It's a real easy way then to test it out to make sure it's going to be a good wireless application for us. This is showing you the inside of the base station. The base station can be populated with modules. So you can put up to 16 modules in here. Each module is a dual. So what I mean by that is if I wanted to get 4 to 20 milliamps out of here, maybe going back to the control room, I can put one card in that's going to have 2 4 to 20s out. By the same token, I could put a card in that has 2 4 to 20s in. I could go out to the field with those. Or relays, I've got a relay module that has 2 single pole double throw relays. So one module can have 2 relays. If we use Modbus, you don't need any of these cards. With Modbus, let's say I'm transmitting Modbus from 8 of these units into here, comes in through the antenna. To get Modbus out, there's an RS-45 port at the bottom here, and that's where we get the Modbus out and then go back to control room, DCS, PLC. So this is our multiple point system, and this is how we make sure that it's going to be a good application. So this is an example of one of the sites where we did a wireless survey. This is it's Alabama Power. It's an ash settling basin. And I didn't know you could do this with Google Maps, but the guy figured out it was actually 5,061 feet from this stack. So they put the red unit way up on top of the stack. And they did have a clear line of sight. That signal goes across the river through the woods to Grandmother's house over here. And the guy said he was still getting about 91% from the back of his pickup truck. So when he got down to the ground, he was getting more like 78%. We do have remote antennas. Actually, we have Yagi antennas too. But with this particular case, if you can picture that antenna up 20 feet up a pole, really gave him much better signal strength, and that was able to do the application with a remote mount antenna. But you can see even 5,061 feet away, getting 91% is obviously a very good test of the technology. So a couple applications on this. We did do an EPA Superfund site. This is a very specific example, but it is contaminated soil because it's an EPA Superfund site. They knew they wanted to do something with wireless because they didn't want to trench, dig up the soil, and then remediate this contaminated soil. So they knew they were doing wireless. They went with our PDW 30 application. They've got some type of flow meter over here. Someone told me this is Yokogawa. I'm not sure. But we're actually powering it up from one of our Precision Digital Trident meters in one of our boxes. We can power this up, and then the 4 to 20 goes from here into the wireless unit, and then it goes half-mile away or however far it's going. It's a pretty specific example with the EPA Superfund site. We do a lot of gas monitor applications, so there's a lot of different gas monitors. I guess Loy would probably have Honeywell gas monitors. So you can see this is some kind of terminal. I'm not sure if this one's mounted properly because this one's right on this I-beam, but maybe they weren't going that far, but it's just close connected to the gas detector. And this is 2 points, and then it goes back to one of our base stations. So just an application with a gas monitor. The last slide I have on the wireless is, I always say there's a lot of good ways to do wireless, good and bad ways. It is nice, obviously, to have a battery power or solar power. We don't do that. I was at a customer site one time. The customer told me that if he was doing this, I think he had like 55 tanks. The way they did this, they had a button on each tank that was pull now. You'd push a button, it would pull the level or volume of the tank, send that wirelessly to one of these consoles. But what the customer told me is that if he just didn't happen to notice there's an L in the lower right-hand corner, which means low battery, that he literally could overflow the tank. So a lot of good ways of doing wireless. We kind of feel the way our niche into the wireless world is, like I said, low cost, rugged housing, and then just really simple. And that's true whether it's 1 point or multiple points. I guess we'll take questions at the end. I've just got a couple more slides on our newer product, which is the Consolidator. So the Consolidator replaces an older unit we had. It can display, control, alarm up to 28 inputs. Some of the key features of this new Consolidator, like I said, up to 28 analog or pulse inputs. So pulse inputs are usually going to be from a flow meter. Analog inputs would be just a 4 to 20. We can display those in numeric and bar graph with a color display. So this is just showing 4 tanks and just showing the levels, but I could show bar graphs in there too. Inputs and outputs are a very modular design. You'll see that in an upcoming slide. I talked about powering up units. So now we're going to hook up maybe up to 28 transmitters. So we needed a much bigger power supply. We can power up, we have up to 1600 milliamps to power up 4 to 20 milliamp transmitters. Modbus, of course, is real common. I think Loy uses Modbus a lot, so we do have Modbus. RTU is standard. This is our first device with Ethernet, so it's got Ethernet, Modbus, TCP/IP. So that's a $500 option, the Modbus, but the Ethernet, the Modbus RS-45 is standard. Math functions that could do addition, subtraction. I had a customer that had 4 tanks like this. He wanted a 5th channel that just showed the average of the 4 levels. So math functions, you can do exponential equations, whatever you would need to do. Differential across a bar screen is common, so you do the difference between 2 levels. Operating temperature goes to -40. Pulse and analog input I talked about. I've got one slide that'll show you a really complex pump control alternation. Once again, we have free software. So this is a free download from our website. I'll show you the software, and of course we have a 3-year warranty on this. The unit itself is available in 2 versions. There's a panel mount version like you see on the right, and then a NEMA 4X field mountable unit. So how do we do this? We talk about 28 inputs. We do this with cards that are inserted in the back. So I can put up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. These cards can be in any order. So this top card just happens to be a pulse input card. These 2 are 4 to 20 milliamp cards. The inputs are in groups of 4. So 4 pulse inputs, 4 to 20 milliamp inputs, 4 more 4 to 20 milliamp inputs. The 2 middle cards I've got here are outputs. The inputs are groups of 4, the outputs are groups of 5. So the 2 middle cards are 5 4 to 20 milliamp outputs, this one and this one. And then the 2 bottom cards, and like I said, these cards could be in any order. If a customer really just wanted 28 inputs, maybe 28 4 to 20 milliamps, we could have 4 times 7, 28 4 to 20 milliamp inputs. We do have relay outputs too, so the last 2 cards here are 5 10 amp single pole double throw relays. So there's 10 relays there. I can power up the consolidator with AC, 120, 240 AC, or DC. Matter of fact, we had a customer that wanted to power it up with AC, and then in the event of power loss, have a battery backup 24-volt supply. So that can be done also. The Ethernet port is here. Here's the micro USB port for the configuration. RS-45 is at the bottom, and we do have digital inputs and outputs also. So modular design, up to 7 boards can be put into the consolidator. This would just be a typical display. So let's say I had 8 tanks. With this, I've got 8 bar graphs. With 8 bar graphs, these numbers become a little bit smaller. You'll see in the next screen some larger numbers. But what we also have in here are alarm set points. So these yellow or orangish lines are an alarm set point. Now this could be a high alarm or it could be a low alarm. Once it goes into alarm, that line becomes red. You see 2 red lines here. This one has gone into alarm because the bar graph has gone above there. Once it triggers the alarm, you get a vertical line also. That vertical line is showing you the alarm reset point. So here's where it went into alarm. The process has to come back down here to reset the alarm. So this is all done in a color 5.7-inch screen, white background. And this is showing, I talked about 1600 milliamps of power. So we like to think that if we're connecting things that we can provide isolated power. So in this particular case, we get 1600 milliamps. So for example, if I had 8 inputs, maybe 8 level transmitters, I could have just 1600 divided by 8, 200 milliamps power per unit. By the same token, if I had 16 tanks, I would have 100 milliamps of power per unit, which is more than enough. These are the other display examples I was talking about. So on the left, we have a volume application. Now, if I just have 1 bar graph, these numbers become a lot bigger. I can add a lot of things into the screen if the customer wants it. So for example, this is showing the milliamp input. So this particular milliamp input is at 12.46 milliamps. There's timer modes. So there's 32 timer modes. This is showing how long it's taking tank number 1 to fill. And at this point, it's 8 minutes and 57 seconds. Status alarm. So this is the alarm. It's on right now. So we see that this is red. So The alarm set point is shown here at 7,000 gallons. Right now, the level is reading, or volume is 5,200 gallons. So this bar graph has come above that line, gone into alarm at 7,000. And now it's on its way back down. When it gets to 4,000, you would see the alarm go off and it goes back to like a yellow color like this. So lead lag pump control is real common with persistent digital applications. Once again, this is just showing one bar graph. It's showing the level then at 9 feet, 5 inches. We can do lead lag pump control. So this is just with 2 pumps. We could do a lot more than that. But with lead lag pump control, you want to make sure it's got the same number of cycles on both pumps. And sure enough, we see 18 cycles on pump 1, 18 cycles on pump 2. It's also showing how long it's been running. So the run time on pump number 1 is 36 minutes, 16 seconds. Run time on pump 2 is 9 minutes and 36 seconds. So we're trying to provide as much information to the customer as possible, even status alarms like this, so saying that the sump number 1 level is okay. And the one on the right is a flow application. So in this particular case, the customer did want a bar graph, so we don't put a bar graph there, but we can show in very big numbers rate at the top. We usually put totalization at the bottom. It's showing 1 million gallons, but we can go up to 15-digit total. So that would be a lot of gallons. Once again, the software is free, so it's a free download from our website. Allows you to do all the configurations. You can save those configurations in your computer. So I've got several saved in my computer from different applications I've done. Connection, of course, is with this USB, and this is showing what one of the software screens might look like. We do have some accessories. As a matter of fact, I didn't talk about our light and horns, but we got light and horns for almost all of our meters. So this is an 85 decibel horn you can put on top of the consolidator. This display is sunlight readable, so I'm not sure if people have bought our sun hood yet, but it could very well be that you've got a very bright outdoor application. We do have a sun hood that could go over whether it's a panel mount or a field mount version. And then this is the pump control application I talked about. So we're using up to 24 relays. There's lead lag pump control of 2 pumps in each one of these 6 tanks, and a high and low level alarm. So this would be a much more complex example. You could do the configuration with these 5 soft key push buttons, but for the most part, you're going to use that software, and you're going to have screens like you see here. So what applications do we find this in? It's pretty much the same applications that other persistent digital equipment is in. Tank height, level, pump alternation we talked about. Flow meters, open channel flow. We do a lot of Modbus also. Our primary literature for these devices are Consolidator Plus poster, and I did bring some with me for Loy today. It's got on the front an actual size of the unit, so it shows the 5.7-inch screen. Goes through a couple of software examples, and on the back it's got all the specifications you would ever want. So this is our primary literature that we have for the Consolidator. And that is our presentation today. So I want to thank Jeff very much for inviting me to Tech Tuesday. Hope everyone learned a lot. My contact information is below right, so feel free to get hold of me at any time if there's any questions. So do we want to open this up for questions and answers?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that. It was a great presentation, good overview. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen here for a second. So I guess a couple applications that I wanted to share. Actually, one I wanted to share with the group today. So recently we did an effluent water monitoring system at a customer that has a paint shop, and basically they were painting small parts and they were running it through a rinse cycle before they would go into the painting process. And this particular customer had an effluent water that they needed to monitor the flow and also the pH going out to the city. And they would need to provide that information to the city at different intervals. So what we did is we had a precision digital indicator hooked up to a flow meter, basically a paddle flow meter that provided a pulse signal back to the indicator. And with that pulse signal, we were able to gather a totalization of the flow and the actual flow rate, which was then taken up to a recorder for data archiving. So that was a very nice application. I think on that particular one, when we hooked up the laptop to the digital indicator, it had the software built right into the indicator, so there wasn't any additional software we had to download from the website or anything like that. We were able to configure it, get it up and running within a matter of minutes. So that was a great application for the digital indicator from Precision Digital. There are a lot of other applications, and thanks for the application notes that you had in your PowerPoint there, because the one that brings to mind real quick is gas detection. So we provide Honeywell Analytics gas detection for CO2, hydrogen, LEL, O2, a number of different gases for plants that have to monitor from a safety standpoint for their plant personnel. And utilizing the wireless solution from Precision Digital would be a nice way to get the gas sensors out into the plant without having to run additional wiring all the way back to the plant monitoring system. So that would be a very nice solution there, nice and easy to get out into the plant and very simple to implement. So that would be the one thing that I picked up from Mark's slides there. The other one would be if a customer was wanting to monitor pH. Loy Instrument also has a very nice pH sensor line from Turtletop, a company out of Australia. This pH probe actually is a smart probe, so it provides a Modbus output, and that Modbus output can be taken to any one of the digital meters from Precision Digital that receive a Modbus input. And at that point you can configure alarms for high and low, and then you can also, of course, read out the pH without having a special pH analyzer that's built for that sensor. So again, the Turtletop Modbus output probe, pH probe, in combination with the Precision Digital indicator would be a nice solution as well. So with that, if you have any questions, go ahead and unmute your phones and go ahead and ask away. And if not, we'll wrap up here in a couple minutes. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and conclude today's training, and feel free to reach out to Mark if you have any questions on any of the Precision Digital line or any one of us here at Loy Instrument. We'd love to be able to help you and come out to the plant and take a look at your application and put together a solution for you. So really appreciate your time today. Everybody on the line today will get a Honeywell, or a Loy Instrument t-shirt. If for those of you on the line, one of our customers, please send me your address so I can ship you the t-shirt along with your size, and you can send that to jberger@loy-instrument.com. And for those of you that are Loy employees, please see me today and we'll get your size and get you a t-shirt today. So appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you on next Tech Tuesday. And with that, we'll adjourn our training today. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jeff.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.